Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is April 29th, 2013. It's Monday late afternoon, and here are your news updates for today. Let's go to the Watchers watching the world, and there's nothing new there. Let's go over to the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. E-bombs, the looming threat from doomsday terror weapons of the 21st century. Also, world's leading virologist warns of potential human-to-human transmission of H7N9. And I am going to be attaching Dr. DEAGLE's Nutrimedical report, the third hour. Also, 6 months after megastorm Sandy slams into U.S., thousands still homeless. Interior of planet Earth 1,000 degrees hotter than previously thought. Powerful gas explosion rocks Czech's capital, 40 injured. And that does it for the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Let's go to the E&E News, U.S., Canada. Let's go to that one real quick. Today, TV, most hazardous material on planet leaking at U.S. nuclear site would contaminate our food chain for hundreds of years to come if it reaches Columbian River. Also, heads up, Fox News, humans to be affected by what's killing California sea lions. Would be sad if it's because of Fukushima disaster. They know it's from there. Also, U.S. nuclear worker brought to tears over leaking waste. I was ready to sell everything and move to the woods. And that's your hint. Get ready. You don't have to sell everything. Rent it out. But it might be time to head to high ground. Okay, also, NPR. There's been a melt-through. There's cracks. Fukushima reactors not likely to stop leaking into ocean anytime soon. Levels in fish still as high as 2 years ago. It's probably getting higher. It's cumulative. Fukushima evacuee housing compared to World War II internment camps for Japanese Americans. Alrighty then. I'm making this as fast as I can. And so, here we go. It is one day down. I'm not at home. I don't hear about what's going on behind me. 4 to go before the weekend. And stay tuned, I'm attaching stuff. Hopefully I can do more than 15 minutes. Alrighty then, take care. I got your backs, and I'll see you tomorrow on the flip side.
Are very likely to happen in the next few years.
Well, yes, Dr. Bill. In fact, privately, you were telling me a couple of hours ago your proposed scenario for what's going to happen through the rest of the calendar year.
Well, I think this is what I see, and it's a fluid one. It's not prophetic. If it was prophetic, I'd announce that it was, but here's what I see happening. This year I expect to see the bond market have a blowout parallel to an avian plague, and I think the Ison comet will be the start of a series of coronal mass ejections built in chunks, and it'll primarily affect the southern hemisphere because we're going to be in November when the Ison comet passes the sun and is a sun grazer. So my expectation is the southern hemisphere is going to hit much harder than the northern. So if you think you're escaping by going south to New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, you might think twice because, in fact, they're more likely to get hit with a much bigger CME. And in the northern hemisphere, we're likely to get grazed by it, which would mean partial knockout, and they'll knock out primarily satellites and some ground-based communication and power grid. But the biggest thing is we're going to end up with the southern hemisphere really getting clobbered. And, of course, when that happens, it also doesn't just knock it out. It also knocks out the ozone layer and the upper atmosphere, so we're going to get a blast of radiation that's going to knock out crops in the southern hemisphere. So while it's entering into their late spring and summer with a crop, you're going to get massive crop failures from UV strobing from this ultraviolet light stream coming off, the plasma stream coming off the sun. So I expect the famine to go into high gear when the southern hemispheric crops fail.
Absolutely. Well,
give us the latest science, and you showed me a very interesting curve here, and a report too from the LaRouche Foundation about the strategic defense of Earth, which we talked about with the LaRouche Foundation before. The number of meteor strikes is increasing dramatically on a logarithmic basis since 2005. The number of earthquakes is fluctuating in a sine wave type pattern, and when it gets around 400, I think it's quakes per month worldwide, there is an increased risk of a major superquake. We know that coronal mass ejections and action at a distance that Professor McCanney talks about can cause quakes because it hits enough energy transfer to the tectonic plates in the lithosphere to cause a release of energy when it hits what's called the harmonic threshold of the tectonic plates involved. We know that the geotectonic weapons are to pump in harmonic frequency at those particular plate frequencies until the piezoelectric crystals vibrate and the mu resistance between the rock faces drops towards zero. I've told us before, this is part of the information on chemtrails, because it's more than just chemtrails that you can see at the lower atmosphere that change the albedo of the Earth and can create clouds. The higher atmospheric is basically used to pump in energy to change the jet stream, to move energy, storm cells, and also to pump in energy that goes to ground that can affect the tectonic plates and cause earthquakes, volcanoes, and geotectonic events, including moving magma that can cause major problems such as the upthrust zone that occurred in Aceh, Indonesia back in 2004 that can trigger off major quakes. So the Earth has been weaponized, and beyond the Earth being weaponized, the passage of comets is a major trigger, and the production of CMEs is a major trigger for super volcanoes, super earthquakes, and other events happening on the planet.
Well, that's right, Dr. Bill, and I think we need to keep a close eye on the sun. Right now, the number of earthquakes per week is well below 300. It was creeping up. It crept up from under 200 to just under 400 over the past month, and then just this last week it started falling again. So I think the seismic energy has been reduced from the earthquakes that have occurred. None of them have been what I would call catastrophic, although a lot of people were killed and buildings were destroyed.
Yeah, there's some big ones, though. I think in China there was recently a lot of people killed. There was a couple of other places where some major quakes. I think in one other country over there in the Mideast it was hit as well. We're seeing a lot more quakes in general. For example, around Japan, there's a 500% increase in 5+ earthquakes since March of 2011. 500% increase in 5+ earthquakes. That's a lot. Which means that a 7-level earthquake or greater will completely destroy any containment at all of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear waste depot site, which was previously a site for creating plutonium detonators for nuclear warheads. You can be certain that the Japanese, with their advanced satellite launching systems, are getting ready for a nuclear war with China and with North Korea, and North Korea being the bad dog of China. So anybody trying to pretend that North Korea could do anything without Chinese cooperation and ascension to allow them to do anything is living in a dream world. The North Koreans are in a very short choke chain, and the Chinese hold that choke chain.
Well, we've been looking at some buoy data that's on the web at the National Data Buoy Center, and people can look it up. And it looks
That's the buoy, that B-U-O-Y, the buoys that are all through the ocean to give us a warning about a tsunami or a major under-oceanic volcanic event that moves the ocean floor either up or down, right?
Right, and of course the Americans have the most of those, and they deliberately measure the distance between the top of the water and the ocean floor, and so that's a good way to tell whether there's going to be an uplift or if the ocean floor is falling. And so we looked at that just recently, and I want to thank the analyst J.E. Don't want to give her name on the air because she's not ready to go public yet, but it looks like the ocean floor is rising northwest of Australia, and it's rising just at the Arabian Peninsula, and also in the northwest and off the coast of Central America. And that's really one reason I've seen so much volcanic activity in those regions.
Yeah, you know, northwest U.S., you mean like Washington, Oregon area along the Cascadia subduction zone?
Yes, actually, yeah, right on the Juan de Fuca plate.
Yeah, I would think that if earthquake zones are probably going to go in America first, I'd pick the Cascadia #1 and #2 would be New Madrid.
I don't see any activity along the New Madrid, but I do see activity off the west coast of, for instance, Mexico and Central America. And we have seen a lot of seismic activity. Now, if you put the buoy data with the seismic activity, we have seismic waves. We have earthquakes under Newberry volcano in Oregon, and what they're using Newberry volcano as a source for geothermal energy. That is, they're drilling down to the magma, and and then they're going to use that as an energy source for heating. And the problem with that is, well, they put sensors in there, and so now they can see the magma moving, and they're measuring the earthquakes, and there's been a lot of activity there. I'm not so sure I'd want to be drilling down there at Newberry. But in any case, all the Cascade, Mount Hood, Mount Rainier, even St. Helens, and down into Northern California, Lassen, and Mount St. Helens, no, what's the other one? Mount Shasta, have all had harmonic earthquakes recently.
Yeah. So the Cascadians, number one. The reason why I mentioned the New Madrid is there was a lot of activity last year, and it has a different pattern. It tends to be very quiet before things really get going. Remember, about a year ago, there was a lot of activity in fault lines connecting between the Gulf of Mexico and New Madrid.
Well, yeah, we have in the Gulf of Mexico, as well as along the west coast and the east coast of the United States, and we're not getting any information out of them that says that the ocean floor is doing anything. So I'm a little suspicious
that's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, that's
because
good to know.
What are we worried about? You mentioned before, and you're one of the first to mention it, is that the presence of these chemicals down there, what do you call them?
Corexit and all the oil?
No, not those. I'm talking about the actual deposits of
methane clathrates?
Methane clathrates, yeah. Methane clathrates, those go actually down as deep as 2 miles from the ocean floor down. And so we're talking about enormous amounts of energy. In fact, it's been estimated the amount of energy stored in methane clathrates at the bottom of the ocean is somewhere around 600 times the amount of energy stored in all the proven oil reserves on the Earth.
Yeah, this is a really bad thing because the oil companies want to go to natural gas, and so they're licking their lips over these methane clathrate chambers. Well, the one in the Gulf of Mexico is 5 miles deep. The one off of northern Japan is about 2 to 3 miles deep. And Japan already has plans. They're already tapped into their methane clathrate chamber. Well, it's just a disaster waiting to happen. All they need to do, what happens is that the methane, under pressure, it absorbs the water, so it becomes hydrated. And when it's highly pressurized, then the water that each molecule of methane has is like 20. So you've got 20 molecules of water per 1 molecule of methane. And when that gets out and starts shedding, when the pressure is released and it starts shedding the water, then that methane becomes dangerous as a firebomb. And it can, they could start a methane fire that would extinguish life.
Welcome back, and let's go over the H7N9. I just have an IntelliHub report here, and I'm trying to see if we can talk about this. The case fatality rate is 20% overall, but for adults, 40%. Children tend to get the infection and just get sick. There's probably a lot more cases that are not diagnosed, but it has a potential to shut down civilization, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does, and in fact, they put out 3 good signs, 3 bad signs, and 3 really bad signs. I'll just go quickly over them. One of them is that all health care in China for the H7N9 is now free, and that's to encourage people who are sick to go into the medical center.